Today, on episode number 526 of the Teaching in Higher Ed podcast, Unlocking Affordable and Accessible Education with Open Educational Resources with Ann Taylor.
Produced by Innovate Learning, maximizing human potential.
Welcome to this episode of Teaching in Higher Ed. I'm Bonnie Stahoviak, and this is the space where we explore the art and science of being more effective at facilitating learning. We also share ways to improve our productivity approaches so we can have more peace in our lives and be even more present for our students. I'm thankful today to be welcoming to the show Ann Taylor. She has worked in the field of distance education since 1991, focusing on learning design and faculty development. At Penn State, Ann serves as the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences Senior Assistant Dean for Distance Learning and Director of the John A. Dutton Institute for Teaching and Learning Excellence. She is responsible for guiding the college's strategic vision and planning for online learning. Ann works with faculty, administrators, stakeholders, and institute staff to plan and implement online programs that are tailored to the needs of adult professionals worldwide. She also serves on university committees focused on strategic planning, policies, and procedures related to the Penn State's distance learning initiatives, and was an active member of the University Faculty Senate from 2007 to 2024. Ann regularly works with university colleagues to create teaching and learning resources for faculty, and she shares her work as a frequent public speaker and author. Annie Taylor, welcome to Teaching in Higher Ed.
Thank you, Bonnie. So good to be here.
I am thankful for this conversation. It's been a while since we've focused on these important topics. I want to start by asking you to surprise us or to tell us about surprises that you've experienced. What are some often surprising things about either textbook costs or student needs or some jumble of those that you begin to uncover as you work with faculty in attempting to get people to create, make use of some of these open educational resources?
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. So many surprises. I think sometimes it's what is the thing that they need. You know, you think of a textbook, but I have literally worked, I've been in the instructional design field my whole career, so since the early 90s. And I literally had to help a faculty member get rocks to students for a geology course. I've worked on a video course where each site, it was before we had Zoom, so it was like room-based, a room of students here, a room of students in another state, and so forth. And we had to get them construction flags because it was a construction flagger, stop signs, training programs. So you just never know what the students are going to need for the class. But I think in a bad way, I have been surprised at how some of us don't think about the cost of what we're requiring our students to use. I worked on a course many years ago when I was an instructional designer, and a faculty member required his students to buy 7 books for his course, and they were each fairly expensive. And when I tried to point this out, that it would be hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and might we back off or just use sections? Oh, no. I mean, just no awareness of what he was doing to his students and how inaccessible his course was. I mean, this word spread and people would not sign up for it because they couldn't afford the books. The flip side of that is being surprised when I've seen research data about how few students buy books. They will just dive into a course. And I mean, I've got 2 grown kids, and I know it was true when they were in college that they use the grapevine. They find out whether you really need the book or not. Can you get by without it? or they just literally can't afford it. And so they are forced to try to get by without it. And all the research shows that they don't do well. The learning outcomes are not as good. So I think those are probably among the top surprises.
So I'm curious now as you talk about, I love this example of the construction flags and the getting the rocks there. How else might you like to maybe expand that it doesn't even have to be a textbook at all, even considering those people teaching more traditional disciplines in which textbooks might seem almost required to have some credibility with one's peers who, might judge us on promotion and tenure, or will we get hired back as an adjunct next semester, what have you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think again, I was raised as an instructional designer professionally, so I just can't help. I always think of what in engineering we call backward design. So my career until I started being administrator was helping faculty design and develop courses. And the first lesson I learned to do with them was say, don't think about the textbook. Picking a textbook is one of the last things you should, if you even need one, is one of the last things you should do. So we start with what is it that you want your students to know or be able to do or have experienced by the time they're done with your course. Okay, so you got that goal in mind. Okay, how are you going to know whether they do know or can have experienced or okay, those are going to start being your assessments or your learning activities, your knowledge checks. Okay, great. Now you want them to be successful on those. Now, what are you going to need to have them experience? Are you going to need to teach them and so on and so forth so that they can be successful on those assessments and reach those ultimate course learning outcomes? Okay, now let's back up. What resources are you going to need in order to teach them that? Is it all up here in your head? Is it a textbook? Are it articles? Are you going to bring guest speakers in? Do you need construction site flags and rocks? What is it that you need? So you really take it from that approach. And it's interesting, even seasoned faculty who are great in the classroom, you often see this like, oh, wow, wait, what? I was trying, as you said, I was trying to cover a book. And then it really opens our eyes to, especially if it's going to be text-based material that you need, well, does it have to be a book? What if it's a bunch of articles or some websites or some videos or whatever? And then, wow, well, are those out there already freely available? Which gets us to our topic of open educational resources, or at least affordable, which at our institution, and it seems fairly widespread, most say around $40 or $50 total. Seems to be ours is a $50 mark. So yeah, it's a matter of just looking at what it is the course is about and what you want students to take away from it as your starting point.
Tell us about a time in either your experience or working alongside someone else where you felt that visceral sense of a need for change in terms of handling textbooks. Is there some pivotal moment you can think of where it was just that stark, oh gosh, something needs to change either within your own way of approaching resources for your classes or someone else's?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, those moments for me, almost my entire career, I've been in the field of distance education. And since the late 1990s, that's meant web-based. We did do distance education before then. Penn State was doing correspondence studies since the late 1800s. But so it really was more of working with faculty who say, I'm going to teach at a distance. I want them to read the book and then read this chapter, read the book, and then go to the next chapter and read that, take a test, read a chapter, take a test, read a chapter, take a test. And I'm just always surprised, they're like, it's be easy to put my course online because that's what it will entail. And I say, so are you saying to me, or here's my PowerPoint, that's all you need, and the textbook. And I say, so are you saying to me that I could just tell the students when they come to campus their first year, the library's over there, and I'll see you in December for the test. And then go back to the library in January, and I'll see you in May for the test. Or maybe there's some interim tests. Same with the PowerPoint. Can I just give that to my husband who knows nothing about my field and have him go project it in the classroom and then just sit there and click through without saying it? Like, it's the instructor that's making the difference. That's making the content come alive. That's adding all the nuances and the inside story and and this wasn't really true in my experience, or what have you. So those have been the moments where, again, their eyes just open and they like, wow, I didn't think about the way I could make my class more engaging. I could really add my own experiences and my own knowledge to this. I don't have to just follow a book and use the tests at the end of the chapter.
Oh, you're bringing so much hope toward that freedom that can come. And I'm also picturing for my own experience as well as other faculty, there's kind of maybe 3 broad phases. We'll see. There's kind of that phase we've already discussed where feeling pretty locked into needing to adhere to other people's ideas of what needs to be covered. Anytime, by the way, we say the word covered, that's where we have to get concerned because generally speaking, too much, by the way. Then there's that phase of feeling maybe a little bit more freedom, a little bit more confidence that perhaps within us, within our experience, within our disciplinary knowledge, we can go a little bit more far afield. And then what I see too much as the tension there to think, and that means I need to create engaging content. What if I don't think I'm a particularly engaging person? I hear a lot about people who are more introverted, people who don't feel particularly charismatic and really want to resist that they're supposed to put on some form of edutainment, that kind of a thing. And so then we get to the third phase, which I'm going to have you share a little bit about in terms of, oh my gosh, there is so much out there. And I just want you to just freeform tell us all, like, what all the good things, as if you could say all of it. What's the unexpected things where people don't realize there's not just textbooks online, but what are some of the surprising things that you've seen out there that people have around really seemingly random either topics or ways of expressing information? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know that anything surprises anybody anymore, but I've got more and more faculty who are wanting to do podcasts as a way to bring in guest speakers to their class and, things of that nature. But the first thought I had was that last May, a year ago, I was invited by a colleague of mine, Caitlin Farnan at Penn State, to join her and 20 Penn State students on a trip, a 3.5-week trip to Australia and New Zealand. That was a course. Students got 3 credits of a business management course, and the entire trip was about sustainable business. And there were something like 31 presentations, site visits, tours of that nature. And the first thing that Caitlin and I dreamt up was, let's get some funding and take a videographer. So it wasn't going to be just our phones or our little camcorders, but we took a professional with us, and it was someone from our institution. So we just had to pay their expenses and their travel expenses. And with permission, we got copyright agreements. We were able to have our videographer, Kay DeMarco, film, oh gosh, at least half of the experiences we had. We got home and she edited those. I think she's up to maybe 10 or 12 now. And we put them in our OER repository. So a faculty member that wants to share knowledge about one of the topics that we learned about on our trip and bring that into their classroom without having to take their students to Australia and New Zealand, they can do it now. And we are very happy. It's OER, so we are very happy to have them or upon request for our faculty at Penn State edit those if they just need a little piece of it. I mean, certainly they could start at point A and end at point B, but if they need it sliced and diced differently, that's something that we can do for them here at our institution. And gosh, the excitement that people have had that have been teaching these topics for a long time. They're like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is like a case study come to life. It's like a virtual field trip or what have you. It's just really been amazing to me to see. And now people thinking, oh gosh, I'm taking a group of students to France next year as part of my architecture course. I always took pictures. I never thought about not only me filming it, but bringing someone who's actually really good at filming. And, we've got multimedia specialists on our campus, and it's not that hard for people to figure out that just to fund their travel, but they're already getting paid to do their day job. So we don't have to pay them beyond that. And someone like Kay was so excited to have this opportunity to go to Australia and New Zealand with us. I mean, we all had a ball and we all helped carry her equipment around. And
I'm in my mind trying to figure out how I could become a videographer so the next time people go, because that sounds amazing. There's a couple of things I want to pull out from your story. You're telling a story from a position with, I mean, we always feel like we don't have enough resources, so I don't want to pretend, but far more resources than at a small private institution like the one that I teach at. So if you are not in a position where you would have a Kay DeMarco, something about the story that Annie just told us is really important. They're already thinking about the intended audience for the future. So yes, they're having this tremendous experience for these students who went on the trip. And I'm sure that was an incredible learning experience for them. But there's a design process that is often hidden where people will misunderstand and think, oh, what I need to do is film my lectures inside of that lecture hall every single time. And then that will allow me to have this incredible engaging thing. So if you're not in a position where you have a Kay DeMarco, and you're not in a position where you have the time or resources to think about the future audiences for whatever that capturing, my suggestion is go and have a wonderful time in New Zealand, focus on those learners right then, and draw from the vast resources that already exist. The best example I ever have of this, Annie, and maybe you've heard of this, but if you haven't, I just can't wait to surprise you with it. If anybody teaches constitutional law, or you teach about U.S. government, or you teach something like that, you could record all of your lectures talking about the 27 different amendments, and you could talk about different arguments and all of that. There are gazillions of people who have already done that. But did you know that WNYC recorded the Most Perfect album, that is the name of it, WNYC Studios, where they got different artists, some of them very well known, Dolly Parton, for example, some of them lesser known. There's a wonderful Mexican mariachi band that plays on this album, and they all wrote their own lyrics. They performed the music. They have podcast episodes. They have an entire musical album. Why would you try to recreate anything close to that versus then what your role would be to draw out, okay, listen, what did you hear? What did you notice? What does it make you think about? If you were going to write a song, or did you want to annotate the lyrics and see what really stood out to you? What do you disagree with? What do you agree with? What do you have questions about? That kind of a thing. So I just wanted to say that about the Kay DeMarcos, because I am certain she is an incredible resource who's already able to envision the future for what you're going to need to have those kinds of assets. So anything else in terms of like surprising things that people might find online?
Yeah, no, I am on such 100% agreement. The other thing I just want to add is there is nothing more boring than watching a recorded lecture. Again, my field is distance education. And I often would talk to a newbie who thinks, oh, you just record my lecture and I put that online. And I say, oh my God, please don't do that to your students. Would you like to watch an hour-long talking head? No, that is not what we do. And the other thing that I just want to add to that is, I mean, again, totally agree. And one of the things we did not do was get anything at the Great Barrier Reef, where we did go, because there's already so much online. we really had her focus on the sites and the presentations and the tours that we weren't going to already find online. But the other piece of that is that it doesn't have to be a trained videographer. Yeah, we're lucky. We are super lucky. But we worked with a class a long time ago with Professor Richard Alley, who is just, no pun intended, a rock star in the geology field. And he was taking a group of students out west to visit some of the national parks. And it was built into this course. It was a face-to-face course at the time, but we knew it was going to become an online course. And again, the question of how could we let more students have this kind of experience or learn this information, even if they don't go with him in the future, we had someone teach the students how to record the video and help them use simple editing tools. Gosh, I'm sorry, but this is going to sound, but people are so good at this now. Like, I feel old. They're so good. And so it was recorded and student produced video. And we used it in the course for years and years and years. And now we're faced with, gee, we need to update it because it's been so good. We haven't wanted to touch it. And I've also had faculty who did have some really good homegrown video recording skills with their cell phone. I mean, and it's not that there's a lot on the line of OER. There are tons of free DIY resources out there for capturing and producing really great video or podcasts or what have you. So yeah, you don't have to have a professional videographer.
How would you think about if somebody is newer to this? What makes it good? What makes a video great? What makes a podcast great? You said it's really boring to listen to an hour-long lecture, but I would say, by the way, I think we maybe have a caveat most of the time.
Most of the time.
For most of us.
Most of the time.
Yep. Especially if we don't design it with the knowledge and intentionality of who would be watching said lecture. But what kinds of qualities come to mind for you thinking of like that? Here's some things that make a great video or make a great podcast. What are some elements to it?
I do think there is a lot said for just making it engaging, making it have some energy. Some of the, yes, there can be recorded lectures, but even some of the best face-to-face individuals may or may not come across well in video. But I think it is about if you're boring face-to-face and monotoned or you just kind of mumble and so forth, you're probably not going to come across great recorded either. So I think that if you think about what are the things that you really find engaging when you're listening to a speaker, a presenter, it's some of the same qualities. And I heard you when you said earlier, we don't want people to think they have to be this great show person, this great entertainer. Yeah, absolutely. So know your weaknesses. And if that's not you, then what can you do to make your class more energized, more engaging? Is it having, really great learning activities you can do with your students? Is it bringing in a guest speaker or a resource that would bring alive the topic you want to teach? Just and ask colleagues, ask friends. One of the things I like to do is just watch other people, find out if there's some really great courses. As you said, so many are fully online and available to anyone to view, and analyze it. How could you replicate that?
I'm thinking about some of the work that Michelle Pakinski-Brock has done around the liquid syllabus. And part of the liquid syllabus involves the great welcome video of some kind. And I remember her posting a video, if I can find it, it was so many years ago, but if I can find it, I'll post a link. The elements that I see coming out of these welcome videos, too many times people think, oh my gosh, it's going to be so hard because I have to have all these different shots to make it good. And it has to be so produced. I find for myself, it's too much pressure to do that. Even though I feel like I have the skills to do it, it's just a time thing. I feel like it's way more authentic for me to have it be more current, even though I work very hard to never make any time specific references, because I do want it to be evergreen. But at the same time, it just feels dated, even if you never say it's 2024, it still can end up feeling that way. So I'm specifically thinking of a video that she posted as an example, a welcome video, and it was the element of the unexpected because the woman recorded it in her car, which I realized today everyone, I guess, records videos in their car. But I mean, she was just, getting and it was because it was right before the class was going to be start. I literally felt like I was taking it as I watched it, that this was going to be my professor and she's looking forward to seeing us this coming week. And so much so that she walked right out of her exercise class and right into her car. And as messy as her hair was, these are my, faint memories and things. And then I did an unexpected welcome video, unexpectedly, by the way. I joked with my friend. It was on a weekend and I just did not feel like getting quote unquote ready for the day. So I didn't want to put makeup on. And so instead I recorded a video, instead of pointed at me, pointing around our neighborhood. And I just walked around. You can hear my footsteps walking around the neighborhood, and then I'm sharing with them. And then after the fact, it's very easy to then put pictures on top of a video. And so I asked the students later, what did you notice? And they're noticing things I never would have suspected. Like, oh, I was curious about where you live, and it looked so beautiful, and there were so many trees there. And then one time I re-recorded it because once I realized, oh, they really like this unexpected thing. And our kids were playing a game of wiffle ball with my husband in the middle of this park. So I asked them, I want you to watch this video and tell me afterward, what is it you noticed? And they were like, well, we noticed that your daughter made it to first base. And it was all these things that I never noticed come to life. It's just really fun when you sort of prep people to do that. But the easier that we can do these things, if we're going to do it, quick production and the humanness that you show up at is really going to be that unexpected. Oh, I don't really normally see. I normally see professors in a more formal context. I normally see them with bullet points. I normally see them dressed certain ways, all the things. Yeah.
We have anecdotally heard over and over from students that they appreciate those kind of videos much more than the professionally produced ones. Now, I like to think that the ones we did on our trip had a different purpose, but yeah, getting to know your instructor as a human, as a person, and someone who's going to care about you, it's conveying those things throughout the video that you produce that's way more important. And a lot of it's the informality that makes that come through.
Yeah, I love that you're helping us distinguish between what is the purpose of whatever content it is you're developing. Is it to get to know your professor? And would that timely authenticity matter more? Or are you really going to go for it and produce some really unexpected, engaging content that you'd like to last for 3 to 4, 5 years? Those are two very different thought processes and different kinds of design things that we may come in. You talked about the backward design model, and I wonder if there are any other models you'd like to recommend to people that have kind of been a mainstay for you as far as helping you, especially for faculty who perhaps are not as familiar with teaching online, or perhaps they got into it in emergency remote teaching, and those were certainly not the best circumstances or often ways to expand our collective imagination in some of the cases. So what do you think of any other tools where you go, yeah, you got to know about backward design? What else are some of the frameworks or tools that might be really helpful to us in this endeavor?
That's a great question. Definitely starting with the backward design, definitely seeing if there are any instructional design people that you can work with, even just get a consultation. I know that I am very, very lucky to have all the resources we have at Penn State. And, you may have no one or one person, but still to really rely on people whose expertise, and this is instructional designers whose expertise is how to teach. Most of us are taught our discipline, but we aren't necessarily taught how to teach. So that's huge. The other thing, if you're moving into the online realm and you're moving away from the emergency mode, we talk a lot about intentional course design. And that means working with professionals who know how to do this, know how to do it right, or at least exploring online resources where you can learn that. There's, I'm sure, a million courses out there, free MOOCs and so forth on how to design high quality online material. The biggest point that we make when we're first working with a faculty member, other than backward design, is to try to put a picture in their head of what their course might look like when it's online. And the mantra that I know I use over and over again is text first, not video first. We use a text first. People do not like watching hours and hours and hours of video. They're going to speed it up. They're not going to know what's important. They're not. So our online courses, and we've developed probably about 150 just in my college within Penn State. We start with the written word, and then we make sure that anywhere it's going to make a difference or it's going to engage the students, we incorporate multimedia, pictures and graphics and interactive tools and video and so forth. But we don't start with a recorded lecture. We start with backward design and what is it that you need to say to your students. And the other benefit of doing it that way is, as you were saying earlier, it's evergreen. It's more evergreen, and it's much easier. As a seasoned podcaster, you'll appreciate this. It is much easier to update and edit when it's written than if you have to go refilm or re-audio record material. So we have these, I think, and by all accounts, these amazing, engaging, high quality, rigorous online courses that are not video based or even audio based. They may have it audio, they may have video, but that isn't the premise from the beginning.
Your story reminded me of in April of 2020, I believe it was, Mike Caulfield came out with this. It was a mini course, and it was called the Dirt Simple Online Course or something like that. I'll definitely find it and put a link in the show notes. But he helped so much. People are so much trauma, so much chaos, so much utter devastation. What are we going to do? And then it was, no, you don't have to completely turn into a different person. And so it was very much low bandwidth, both from a technological standpoint, so it's more equitable to people who may not have access to high speed internet, reliably speaking. But then also people, because many of us do engage in our scholarship in a written way. It's less likely we would have engaged in our scholarship for most disciplines in video or through podcasts. So take what you already know, what you already do well, and there's a lot of resources out there that are openly licensed to do so and remix and make your own, that kind of a thing. That is a great reminder. And to me, even though, Annie, I know how to make videos, you've just highlighted for me that sometimes I just get too excited about, I'm going to burn the whole class to the ground and start again. My colleagues are laughing if they're listening to this. Like, sure, she does that every time. If you do start with text, at least if you bit off more than you can chew, you can see how far you have to go and at least have a skeleton of written content, and then start adding some cool videos in. And pretty soon, if you're me, you're going to figure out, I don't have time to create all the different things I wanted to do. Can I find a really cool 2-minute thing that's openly licensed or some kind of
someone else already did?
Yes.
Well, the other thing, Bonnie, is even if the writing, we want to be much less formal than the scholarly. Yeah. I don't want to see a research citation every other sentence and so forth. So it is different. And yes, they probably at least have lecture notes that can give them a launching point, and then they just have to flesh it out. But we also, not everyone's comfortable doing that. Record yourself, audio. I had a faculty member I worked with years ago who just said, oh, I'm not going to write this down. And my class is usually seminar style. And I said, yeah, but I bet at the beginning, before you say talk amongst yourselves, I bet you set the stage. You probably spend 10 minutes. And he goes, oh, I probably spend about 20 minutes giving some background and blah, blah, blah. And I said, see, that's what we need to capture. Oh, I'm not going to write that down. I said, hey, this was a long time ago. So we didn't have our great cell phones then, but I had a digital audio recorder, a little kind of like a tape deck. And I said, I can loan this to you and you can just sit in your chair in your living room when you feel like it and record it. And then we can, and nowadays, again, we've got these easy tools that'll transcribe it for you and so forth. And then I'll give it back to you. We'll transcribe it. I'll give it back to you. And then you can polish it up and take all the uhs and ums and misspeaks out. And he was thrilled because I wasn't making him write anything. If there were parts of it that really were like, oh, wow, I want to just actually use that audio clip, we could embed it. Or if it came clear that it would be great to have him on video or to go find someone else's video, and so forth. I mean, but like you're saying, it gave us a foundation that even if it just started as a text-based course, it's a start. And we all start somewhere and we can improve every time we offer and build it as we go. And yeah, you don't have to start with the highest, fanciest thing in the world.
So important. When I had Leon Furtz on, he was talking about, and this was staggering to me, still to this day, it's staggering to me. He does his writing while he runs. I'm not a runner, so I can't even wrap my head around how he does this, but I have been trying to challenge myself a little bit more when I have an idea of a story that I might tell or something, just get ready. And the tool that I use is called Whisper Memos. There's so many of them out there. You can do it. And for me, I have to reduce all of the friction. So how quickly can I get to whatever it is to capture that idea and the story idea that I had, and then it transcribes it all into text, and it's amazing. Oh, it's too easy though, Annie. And I guess today is just my day of disclosing things on the podcast beyond what I feel comfortable doing, because I'm in the restroom the other day and my husband didn't realize I was in the restroom. So he's having a conversation with me through the door. And he's like trying to take the kids somewhere. So it's like I'm in the bathroom. I'm needing some privacy here, the whole thing. And on because I can access it on my watch to start recording.
No.
I kid you not, water splashing, water splashing, water splashing. I need some privacy. It was the most hysterical thing. So I think we need to reduce the friction. But I think I've gone too far here because I can't be activating. I can't be activating the watch while it is recording the most, human of moments for us. Yes, it's too funny. So, all right.
Oh my gosh.
This is the point in the show where we each share our recommendations. I guess I kind of just shared one, maybe.
I was going to say, I wrote that down. That was a great one.
Also, the part about don't make it so easy for yourself that you accidentally record. So I have kind of some fun ones to recommend. So I have been participating throughout May, June, July, and August of something called My Fest, which is short for Mid-Year Festival. And it's just an opportunity to renew and refresh and connect with people from all over the world. And anytime that I see Irene Mawe's name show up on any of their descriptions, I just want, whatever it is, she has infectious joy and wisdom. I just want to be there. And so I saw that she was doing something with Tony Carr, where they were going to come together and dance. And I have done sessions with her before where she dances. And this was even more unique because we danced, but they also had us do some reflections and some writing and a little bit of meditation. It was so nice. But during the dance part, they shared 3 songs. And I want to share these songs with you now. And their links to them will be in the show notes. So there's one called It's Okay by a group called Night Birdie, and I was not familiar with that song or that group, and I love it. Every time it comes on now, I'm just so excited. It's definitely going to show up in my most listened to songs for 2024, I can guarantee you. And then another artist, which I suspect many people will be familiar with, I was not, but it sounds like this is a popular artist, a song called Africa by Salif Keita. those of you who know him are shaking your head right now. I'm sorry, I tried to do my best to pronounce it. And then, so that was again both of those new songs to me, a new artist to me. But the one that was a new artist to me, a new context to me, but an old and familiar song is the song Feeling Good, which I know sung by Nina Simone, but this is the Spanish version. I'm just going to try to do the group is called Cubaneros, and it's Y me siento bien, as in feeling good. I'm feeling good. The Spanish version. This version is infectious. It gets inside of my mind and it stays with me for days. And I've been having so much fun listening to it. I love when something is old and new all at the same time. So a song that I know from, as long as I can remember, but I've never heard it sang in Spanish, and it's a different rhythm and a different group, and I've been having so much fun. So I guess my recommendation is listen to these 3 songs and please dance while you do it, because Irene and Tony would be so happy if you did, and so would I, to bring a little joy into your day. And Annie, I'm going to pass it over to you for whatever you'd like to recommend.
Oh, I love that. Well, I mean, I was thinking I'm really hooked these days on podcasts. And there are a couple that I love for work. I'm an administrator. And so really the ones that I'm really listen to a lot these days are Coaching Real Leaders with Muriel Wilkins. And it's like being in the room, a little fly on the wall while someone's getting an executive coaching session. It's really cool. And you learn from what she's helping these people deal with. The other one I love for work is Dear HBR, Harvard Business Review. Dear HBR, they take listeners' letters describing some issue they're having in the workplace, and then this little panel each weigh in on their advice for the person. And it's just, I love it. I love it. And I actually I debrief with those with colleagues at work. But the fun ones that I have to admit, I have a speaker in my shower, little Bluetooth speaker, and I listen to in the shower and on walks and while I'm cooking dinner. My 2 favorite that you guys just have to listen to if you haven't before, and probably I'm the last to know about them. But Wiser Than Me with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. OMG, they're amazing. She is a little older than me. You may remember her as Elaine or the star of Veep. And she interviews women who are typically a little older than her or a lot older than her, women, to share their amazing life knowledge. I mean, the whole thing, she starts in episode 1 just explaining that we ask older men for their advice and their guidance. Why don't we ask wise women for their guidance? And so it's interviews with people like Jane Fonda and Ina Garten, and it's just, oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. It's hilarious. It's insightful, so fun. And then the other one that I just am so hooked on, and I know I'm late to this party, really late. I'm a big NPR fan, big public supporter by public radio station, but I never listened to the Moth Radio Hour. And the Moth Radio Hour, if you haven't listened to it, is people telling stories, real people. Almost all are just real people. Every now and then it's someone a little famous or maybe a lot famous, but it's mostly people like me telling a story. They're usually around a theme. They're like 10, 15 minutes long. And I'll tell you, Bonnie, I have been a big fan of storytelling in teaching. And so this is really inspiring me to go back to that idea and to promote that idea. And again, you don't have to be the storyteller. There are so many that I listen to and I think, oh my gosh, that would be great in this kind of a class or in that kind of a class. So those are the ones I'm hooked on right now, but actually, there's more, but I'll just limit it to those 4.
Okay, because the Moth Radio Hour I've heard about from long ago, but it's been so long since I've listened, I've got to revisit it. I'd heard about Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but hadn't heard Wiser Than Me, so now you're prompting that. Didn't know that HBR had this Dear HBR, I've listened to other of they used to have a women leadership podcast, which I think has gone away, but I used to listen to that. And I didn't know about this Coaching Real Leaders. That sounds like so good. Now you got music to listen to. I've got podcasts to listen to. We've just filled up, we filled up some time
I've got
for each other.
a new list of things I need to listen to.
Yes. Thank you so
and
much
I need to check out my whisper memo.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been so great being connected with you, and I'm so excited because it feels like just the beginning of something big. And I wanted to have you share a little bit about the organization that connected us, for us to thank them, and also as a potential valued resources for people who might be listening.
Oh, I am so happy. I really, UPSEA is the professional organization that connected us. And I was thrilled because I have not listened nearly enough to your podcast. And so it reinvigorated. That's on my big on my list too. But UPSEA is the Online and Professional Education Association nationwide. It has been in existence for many, many years. And I have been a member for a long time. And Penn State, where I work, is an institutional member. And I'm so lucky because it has become my professional home. It's where I find my peeps. They have a number of events year-round, regional events, webinars, coffee chats that are online. They have networks. You can join one of the networks, which is like a subgroup of members who share a common interest. I'm in the network for online administration. But the big events that I love, and one of which is how we got connected, is their annual meeting, which just brings everybody together and is so, like, you just come home so jazzed and so excited and with all these new friends. And the one that you and I connected over is the Summit for Online Leadership and Administration and Roundtable and Distance Teaching and Learning Conference. We call it Solar and DT&L. Solar has been around for a number of years, many years. My UPSEA colleagues are dying because I'm not remembering how long these things have all been around, but a long time. And then we recently, UPSEA recently became responsible for the Distance Teaching and Learning Conference, which is a long time, 40-year, just hit its 40-year mark. Beloved, really kind of teaching and distance teaching and learning focused conference that the University of Madison, Wisconsin always hosted. It was their baby. And they asked UPSEA to take it over a couple years ago. And so now these two events are back to back so that someone like me who wants to go to both just makes one trip. And so spends a couple days. This year we'll be in Minneapolis, but I'm super excited. And I'm going to be presenting there about Penn State's new course mark initiative, which is our way. Lots of institutions, a growing number of institutions are doing this now, of making it apparent to students when they're registering for courses, which courses are using free or very affordable, and every institution sets a money bar on what ours is $50, required materials. Students for too long have just been in the dark and relied on the grapevine to figure out what course they could afford, let alone the tuition, but the materials. So this kind of a course mark is really important. So that's what I'm going to be speaking about. But that's what got us connected and what got us talking about OER.
Oh, well, I am so grateful that that's what got us connected. And I'm glad for today's conversation because that's what's going to keep us connected. And I can't wait for it to get released, and just so appreciate your time and your energy, your passion, and all these years of experience you brought to the conversation.
Thank you. This was as much fun as I knew it would be. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Thanks once again to Annie Taylor for joining me on today's episode of Teaching in Higher Ed. Today's episode was produced by me, Bonnie Stahoviak. It was edited by the ever-talented Andrew Kroger. Podcast production support was provided by the amazing Sierra Priest. If you have not yet signed up for the weekly email updates that come from Teaching in Higher Ed, head over to teachinginhighered.com/subscribe You'll receive all the show notes from the most recent episode, as well as some other goodies that don't show up in those regular show notes. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Teaching in Higher Ed.